Hi, I'm John of John's Carnivorous Plants, and this is my indoor nursery. Today, we got why TDS and pH meters are so important. Oh, goodness. Well, I think the most obvious thing is if you have a problem with your pH or TDS, so like your water quality, you'll never know if you don't have anything to measure it. And this is one of those issues I see with newer growers all the time. They're like, how do I know if my water is safe? And they're asking me, and it's like, well, I use one of these meters called the TDS meter that you can buy off Amazon for about 10 bucks. And I know what is like the concentration of contaminants, I should say. I don't know if that's the correct term or not. I'm not somebody who's a hydrologist, but your water will generally from your tap or even from the store stuff, unless it's like distilled water, will have some level of contamination in it, and you can measure that with the TDS meter. Now, pH is one of those ones I've been starting to become more keen on, and this is not something you'll see very much in a lot of you know grow guides and whatnot. However, my experience with other kinds of indoor botanicals has led me to understand that yes, if you can get very fine tuned to where you're getting your pH also in line, 5, 9 to 7 is usually where you want to be for most indoor plants. There's a lot of philosophy in that of why that's the range. It's not true for all plants. Carnivorous plants, typically Nepenthes, are much more closer towards 7 in some instances. Depending on if it's highland or lowland, it also varies on how much it likes certain levels of pH. So, for example, up in the highland, it's usually a lot more basic, so they can handle something, like 7.5, versus in the lowland in a peat bog, it's going to be, much lower. Could be as hot as, 4. Keeping that in mind, it's just, there's a lot of variation with these plants. And if you don't have the right pH, it's completely untrue that carnivorous plants need no nutrition from their root system. They are still gaining some nutrition. It's just they're used to being in an environment where there's so little, they've had to adapt to take in as much as they can. So if you do fertilize the roots, it'll rapidly take in too much and actually will cause some really nasty effects to the plant, biologically speaking. That's what leads it to rotting and dying and whatnot. So knowing pH values will allow you to more accurately have it to where it wants to be in life. So not all of these plants occur in the same kind of bogs, and it's impossible because most of them, literally I have plants from all around the world here, and they don't occur with the same other kinds of plants around them. They don't occur in the same kind of soils. They all have a slight different need. And what's really weird, when they study certain plants and on how they uptake nutrients from the soil, they actually need a pH range, because for most of them, they get nutrient locked from certain nutrients. So like, I don't think I'm going to be quoting the right macro and micronutrients because I don't have it pulled up at the moment. But basically, if, say, for example, you're at 5.9, your plant is able to uptake zinc, but it can't get magnesium. But then you shift up to 6.1, now it can't get zinc, it's getting magnesium. What this tells me, and where I have my hypothesis as a horticulturalist here, plants in the wild, they experience a range of pH based off when it's raining, when it's not, and the issues of acidic rain, from pollution and whatnot. This does affect plants because it's affecting on how they can naturally uptake nutrients in their environment. It's a big macro, problem, but it does relate to on how carnivorous plants compete with the other native plants around them in the wild. So this explains why certain highland plants are much more finicky than their lowlander counterparts, because some people are putting them in the same kind of moss and stuff like that. It's literally like you're not understanding that, yeah, you might need to be a little bit more neutral in pH, and that's okay. Being closer towards 7 for most of the carnivorous plants is not going to harm them. And in some, like I was pointing out, they actually prefer it. We want them acidic in the cases of those that occur in bogs. The other ones that are much more diverse in where they're occurring, so like, for example, Darlingtonia, they're in seeps or in very shallow creek beds and stuff like that. They're not getting the same kind of interaction with their water sources. Say, for example, a Sarracenia, that'd be occurring next to a pond. You know, like it's much more stagnant water, etc. So it's like it's not fluctuating as much. But yeah, let me look over here. Yep. Oh yeah, it was just a point of, you wouldn't think peat moss has micronutrition, but it definitely does, because it's breaking down, or like, you know, decaying organic matter. And if you have your pH within a much more acceptable range, so like if you take a pH meter and you start measuring your water and it's really low, so like I'm saying, like you measure your water and it's a 4, you're having some problems with your peat, because it's rich in tannic acids or like humic acid. I don't know what acid it's rich in, but it's rich in one of them. I always say tannic acid just because it always reminds me of tannic acids, because I used to do brewing, like enology and whatnot. So it just reminds me of the tannic acid from that, and the very specific color. It's like a very dark, it's like somebody steeped tea for far too long kind of deal, is the best way I can explain it. And that's not ideal for your plants. It's too acidic. That means that the environment is far too hostile for them, because even in the wild, they're usually, if they're in that level of acidity, they're having some other force acting upon them. So it's like usually a very, very, very wet environment. So the rain, whenever it's occurring, you know, every couple days, is providing some relief in the pH, because it's much higher than the bog itself or whatever. But yeah, the TDS meter, I need to round back to that one, because that's a super important concept. pH, it's hard for me to explain to you guys why it's important and stuff like that, but like basically your color of your water in your tray will be your indication. It should be clear. Like I look in here at mine right now, yep, I could see all of the bottoms. Like I could stick my finger in the water, and as you can see, it's not green with algae or anything, it's actually clear. That's what you want, and that's how you know your pH is just, you know, just right for what you're doing with your plants, because whenever your medium is rinsed enough and you're not seeing brown, good. TDS though is more important, because total dissolved solids in combination with out of alignment pH basically is going to double whammy your plant. It'll be either forcing more nutrition in, or like locking it out from a specific kind of nutrient that it does want. And when that happens, your plant will experience really distorted growth in various different ways. And I really wish, because looking back on it, I've seen the various different kind of nutrient lockouts in the carnivorous plants. I just wasn't smart enough to actually take the pictures. I should have, but I've seen various different kind of nutrient lockout in various different plants, and I'll see new growers have issues that people will say, oh, it's lighting, oh, it's this, oh, it's that, and they'll totally miss that. No, it was pH. Oh no, it was the TDS of the water. So you definitely need to go to Amazon and get yourself a TDS meter if you're going to grow plants like these long term, as well as a pH meter, because I have a feeling in the next 10-15 years we're going to dial in the hobby a lot more and get a lot more specific into what these plants want in terms of their acidity in their water. Thank you so much for listening to this 10-minute long rant. It's kind of been long-winded. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like, subscribe, check out my Discord, check out my website, buy some plants. It supports me. And I hope to see you on the next one. Have a great day. Goodbye.